No, not at all.
No, I don't blame you.
Okay, welcome. I am Caitlin Osmondson with our High River, and I am here with Ken Bayliff, who is running for council. And welcome, Ken. We'll get right in. We'll get started. And the first question we have is, tell us about yourself, why you are running for council, and why we should vote for you.
Well, I'm retired to High River. I didn't. I retired to retire, and then when this referendum question came up, it just blew me away. A 4.9% tax increase over 25 years. For me as a senior that doesn't use the pool, and it just didn't make sense. So I decided to run for council. I consulted with some people in my area that had been here a long time, and they told me that pool should never have been built there in the first place. So to put it, a lot of seniors that I talked to said taxes were too high already, and 4.9% would actually would stress, would their own words would be sleepless nights and stressful days. Myself, I thought they could have, instead of getting taxes, why couldn't they have started a fundraising campaign 4 years ago? Surprising how much money you can get in when you fundraise. Calgary just started a fundraising to raise 250 million. I know it's for a council hospital, but it's still, you can raise funds. There's lots of ways you can go about it. One way they could have gone about it was approach the federal and provincial government to give 100% write-off for every donation. So that 100%, people are most probably make more because they know they can write it off. Right now, they only get 50% tax write-off if you donate. So that means 50% in theory goes to Ottawa, who can then turn around and give it to somebody in Quebec or somebody in Ontario, where they're more likely to get elected back to Parliament than they are from somebody in Alberta, or you know what I'm trying to say. So that would be a way you could raise funds. I'm sure there's lots of famous people around the area of High River that would donate. You'd be surprised. When we lived in Crossfield, we needed a new community centre. Of course, that was in the 80s, early 90s, and things were cheaper then. But we built that community centre on raising funds. We had a summer games. It's all on the card here. We had, summer games, and we raised the funds. It was but we got there. But the only thing the town had to contribute, they contributed the land. And they most probably got that for free because the town right then was just over 100 years old. So I think in the old days, you could get land out not for free for $1 an acre. I think you can still get it in some places if you go and live on the land, There's places way up north, So anyhow, I didn't agree with the tax increase, and people I talked to didn't agree with it, so that's why I ran.
Wonderful.
And that's why I'm running. I hope I haven't been too long.
Not at all. We have 15 minutes, so you're good. So
Okay.
we're just gonna segue that right into the next question,
Okay.
which is, what are your top 3 priorities? And if you're elected, how will you work to move those priorities forward?
Well, my top priority, it's not really something my top priority is that, I would never, candidates tend, whether they need to make promises, and promises are easy to make and harder to keep. The only promise I would make to anybody, any resident from High River, is to work as hard as I've worked all my life. And my number one priority, and it should be all councils' priority if they get on council, is to work as hard as they can in the best interest of the residents of High River and the quality of life. That should be their priority. Everything else to me flows from that. That's my. The second is, even when I lived in Crossfield and was on the council, I could never understand. I don't know whether they call them that, but in Crossfield they called it in-camera sessions. which is just, no public, no press, no nothing, And even in Crossfield, I used to say, I don't agree with this. Anything council has to say, it shouldn't be hidden from the residents, You shouldn't have anything to hide. And always the reason I got was, oh, you could be sued, for defamation or something, And I used to say, well, I'm sure in the province it's the same, and in the federal government it's the same. They have a law that says if you say anything in the Houses of Parliament, I'm not dead sure about the province. If you're a member and you say something, you cannot be sued. They have a law that protects you from being sued for defamation or whatever while you're in council, So if it applies to them and they don't have these secret, I call them secret meetings, yeah, why should local government, everybody talks about transparency, I just don't understand it. And I just don't believe that a council should have any meetings that are to do with the running of High River or the residents. The residents should know everything, whether it's good or bad, what is discussed or said in council, So that's my second, and leading my third, going on from that, transparency. I try to ask questions, and it's not that they don't try to answer, but they seem to steer you in all different directions, and you never seem to get answers to questions you want. Like me, I wanted to know in 40 years how many times the pool had closed down to be repaired, and what was the main repairs, because somebody had told me it was always cracks and things. How much they'd spent on repairs. See, you don't know, nobody knows all these answers, and I don't know, and I'm sure there is somebody that knows, but they don't want to tell you, how many people used the pool before COVID? How many have used it since COVID? All these questions, another question, all the projects they started, because this is the town supposed to govern this type of thing. All the projects they started from 2019 to 2021, how many finished on time and on budget? And if they didn't, was there a penalty? Because people told me, even one guy told me, he said that pump station they built, he used to build pump stations in the oil patch and that. He said if he took as long as they'd taken to build that pump station, he said he'd have gone out of business long before he ever retired. Now, I'm only saying what he says. I don't know. I've never built a pump station, so I don't know how long it takes. But it does seem to be like they've been there forever. And if there was an apartment there, they would have got the keys to the penthouse suite because they've lived there that long. Worked there that long. It does seem to have been. I know it started in 2019, I think. Because I remember the road getting blocked off, and we used to have to go, because I live in the northwest, the seniors villas there. So to me, a person should be able to go to council, ask a question. If he doesn't get the, not even into the council meeting, but into the administration, he should be able to get that answer. If they can't give it him straight away, they should be able to give it him a couple of days. Like I've said before, I sometimes wonder if they have a file that says, you don't need to know, we don't need to tell you. Now, if I was on council, I would change that to, you need to know and we need to tell you. So they're my priorities. And I think them priorities lead on then to other priorities. But transparency is the key, I think, that will benefit all residents. I've never believed, even though my grandfather was in the the Freemasons now, I've never believed, in secret societies. Because I was asked when I was on Crossfield to be, they're not supposed to ask you, but the mayor asked me to join the Freemasons. I said no. And then one other guy asked me to join the Elks. I don't think that's a secret society, but when I said, look, I said, if you want, unless you change your uniforms, I ain't wearing a yellow purple hat and a purple jacket and a pair of white pants for nobody. Sorry to joke, but I don't like secret societies,
Okay.
So.
Great. Now, we're going to move into the next question.
Yeah, okay.
And I know that you brought your little pledge form. Awesome. So, for those people that are watching this video and they don't maybe know what this question is about, we have been asking our candidates about if they have heard of the Alberta Urban Municipalities Association, AUMA's pledge for local democracies.
Yeah.
So you were telling us that previously, you were telling me off camera, I guess, that previously you have attended.
Well, they always have, usually after an election, they have a conference and all the municipalities get together and trade ideas. There's usually a trade show too. And my first one was in Edmonton and my second one was in Calgary. And I always found them, and you get people from the province there. So, but it's actually, it's just like a union, and, united we stand, divided we fall.
Yeah, and it's about all the municipalities in the province getting together basically to help move things forward together.
Yeah, like I was telling you my little story about, the seniors when I tried to get that Catholic,
Yeah. So Ken brought along, our question is, what are your thoughts on the AUMA Local Democracy Pledge, and have you taken the pledge yourself? So Ken brought us, he has a signed pledge, you can hold it up so that everyone can see it.
I'll hold my right hand up, I swear.
Do you want to read it out loud so that everyone can see what it is?
Well, it just says to keep local elections local, which makes sense to me, to maintain independence and non-partisanship. Now, I funded myself. I don't know about the other candidates. I've always felt, even if you don't mean it, if somebody gives you something, human nature, they expect something in return. I'm not saying, but, if you look at down south to the States, it seems like that's run by big business, not by the people or not by the people that are representing them, but the one that can make the most money has the biggest shout.
Right.
And I'm not saying for any suggestion that any councillors are, but I funded myself. I certainly would never think that I could afford one of them big boards or whatever. 1,000 cards and 15 lawn signs, that was my limit.
Perfect.
But they did say that you could get 10,000 in donations from people, and you could self-fund yourself up to 1,000. And I said to the girl at the time, and she said, "Oh, you have to open a bank account and all that." And I said, "Well, when I was in Crossfield, I never had to do that." And she said, "So my bank, because when I had my own company, was in my business, like tax and consultant was in. So I made an appointment to go to Calgary, right? And I'm thinking, but anyhow, that's what I have to do. But then I get a phone call the next day. "Oh no, you were right. You don't have to have a bank account if you self-fund up to 1,000. So, I kind of figured, and I said to them, I said, I think if I had to spend $10,000 to get elected in a little town like High River, there's something wrong somewhere."
Well, we're so glad that you signed the pledge, and we just have about 1 minute left in our interview here. So I'm going to ask the last question, and you may or may not know much about it. Since
I don't.
That's okay.
I've only been here 2 years, and 18 months of them I was looking, but ask the question.
Yeah,
I'll do my best. I did try to read up on it.
Sure. So the last question is, what are your thoughts on the current number one strategic priority of a long-term water strategy for our community?
Well, when I went online, the only thing that come up was number one priority is the berm they were building round by the island there, the last one to build, to protect
Yes, oh
Second
yes,
time.
yeah.
Other than that, I don't know, because I don't, I don't even know some of the areas of,
Sure.
so I don't really know about, all I could say, and it sort of said, and the only thing I could give you an opinion of there, because that's the only, I tried to get other information, but it said 604 pages cannot be found. And this said the number one priority was the burn that started in spring and it just finished.
Yes, yeah.
Over there. And the only thing I can say about it now is it looks a lot more natural now than it did with them big old sandbags along the road. So that's all I
Excellent.
can say. And
Well, I'll give you a couple minutes here, or a minute, I guess, because we're just nearing the end of our time. But I'll let you sort of give your final departing message about why you would like people to elect you, and sort of your little one-liner. So.
Well, I'd just like people to elect me because even in Crossfield, sometimes councils can get very, like the old boys club. Actually, when I ran the council in Crossfield, the first thing the mayor said to me, "Are you a team player?" I said, "Yeah, I'm a team player, but I'll pick the team I play on." So, for me, even though you're representing, and it's a council and you have to work together, you still should not lose sight of your own individual, what you think is right and what you think is wrong. No matter what the other people say, you should stick to your guns. And I can't really tell you, but I did have an experience in Crossfield that when I stuck to my guns, and I hate it, I'm not going to, but I did save an environmental disaster in Crossfield because I objected to this one proposal that come into town, which never made sense to me. And in the end, everything I said, might happen, could have happened, because eventually the outfit did go bust. They went bankrupt, and Crossfield could have been left. But even before that, it was a really bad situation, for Crossfield, and for no gain. Crossfield wasn't going to get any more taxes. They weren't going to get any more people employed. Bicycle that dug the main factory, they got people, but they lived to regret it because this company went bust after a few years. They had to bring another company in, and they had to change everything in that plant. It was to burn medical waste, from humans and animals in the Calgary area. And every piece of machinery and equipment that company had built had to be replaced because it wasn't up to standard.
Wow. Well, thank you.
When we go
so
offline,
much.
I'll tell you the whole story, John.
Good. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Ken.
I hope I haven't been too long.
You've been great, and thank you so much for putting your name forward. And good luck to you on election day.
The trouble is, not many people know me, so.